special session. And Dr. Aruna Sharma is from the Indian Administrative Service, 1982 batch, Madhya Pradesh cadre. I've been in Bhopal and Sagar, and I know how beautiful that state is. And then I have friends there who have told me about her and said how efficient and how effective she was. So I'm really proud to have her on our forum today. As you know, this think tank is a policy-oriented think tank. We love to give advice to the government, which is based on solid rock research. And her book, and she herself has worked in different areas. As we were just talking, she has a PhD from Delhi, and the PhD is very relevant to the situation we are right now in. She has a master's from Bath in UK. She's been associated with Kennedy School, and then she's written this. This is her third book, which she is discussing with us today. So, and this book is so relevant for us right now because we were thinking of touching the $5 trillion economy in 24. But this COVID has little virus has come and sort of changed our course of action. So when she said that she's going to present on $5 trillion economy, I thought this is a great opportunity to learn from her because she has worked in different parts of the government. She has worked in information technology, series of talks that we have had on IT, machine learning, artificial intelligence. She has also worked in family welfare and health. And you know, we are worried about the health situation in our own country right now. She has worked in the steel, the Ministry of Steel, and that is where housing plays a very important role as Secretary Steel Government of India. And you know that steel was all over the news just 2 3 years back, the prices of steel and how India is lagging behind and all that. So when we got an opportunity to discuss our book, we thought it's great. So we have invited Dr. Aruna Sharma to come and tell us about her book, as well as in the question answer session, we will have an opportunity to talk to her much beyond her book. So with this, I invite you, Dr. Sharma, to please tell us about your book. And we have about 40 minutes for you to speak, and then we'll have question answer sessions. Dr. Sharma, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Charan Singh, for giving me this opportunity and thinking of talking about my book. And with the good wishes of all of you, in just it's 1.5 months or touching 2 months, it has already reached a 600 mark in spite of lockdown and COVID. So I'll just show the book for the viewers to have a look at it so that they understand the cover page, because I'll be talking about the cover page as well. And the name I have given for the book is Dancing Towards the $5 Trillion Economy, dollar economy of the speed. Now here, the efforts besides the $5 trillion economy, the two important words are the dancing and a holistic beat. And that's how I want to go about it. So I like to call myself a practitioner development economist. And basically, the focus is the economic design to be changed to accelerate the growth story for India. Now, here in the book, what I try to do is to balance the macro statistical data with the microsystems, but ensured it is not entrapped in the economic jargons, a very easy narrative to escape the tyranny of economic approach. So it is more from the practitioner's point of view, for the policymakers, for the academicians, for the people down below in the administrative setup at the lowest level of administration. They won't find it difficult to sort of comprehend and go ahead with it. The whole philosophy behind it is that India has an opportunity. Right. We have missed out some of the major opportunities, but the opportunity is still there because what we call 65% of our population is young, and what is demographic dividend. But what is most important and the worrisome is that this dividend should not become a liability. And that is where the potential lies, and that is where the care has to be taken because we cannot afford to miss out the opportunities any longer. We have competitions coming up from smaller countries like Vietnam, Philippines, even Bangladesh in the neighborhood. So if we want to become a $5 trillion economy, then we have an advantage of the domestic consumption itself very big to make us a break even and plus enter into the export markets. So this is a golden opportunity, which again is very important. But I will like to list out some of the advantages that our economy has, that we are resilient. We have a big family support system, but we are still very weak on the social protection. Similarly, we have a very conservative economic systems which make us recession proof, which we are seeing it now. But the resultant, what we have seen in the last 1.5 years, the demand we have jammed. So if you look at the vehicle of growth, the demand is tapering down and the spending is coming to minimalistic. So this kind of a reaction is also not a good symptom for an economy which wants to claim to be a developing economy. Then again, we have a great talent pool, but then the opportunities are less. So the word which applies or generally used in Indian context is underemployment. So it is not just generating 8 to 10 millions of additional jobs per annum to maintain the present level of employment. It is also to graduate from this underemployment to the better kind of employment, which is better in nature and more productive in nature. So these are the challenges which we have, and therefore the cover page which I showed to you is showing a lying elephant. You know, it is not a sleeping elephant who is reading. So we know the problem. It is not sleeping. And then what is neat is to make it dance if we want to head for a $5 trillion economy, and of course then later down the line as $10 trillion economy. So it is to harness this that I have been talking about in this book. If you look at it, like in the domestic market itself, like what I said, can trigger out the virtuous cycle in a very, very big system. But what is most important is a zero system interference. Are we having a zero system interference? And that is where the problem is lying. So, like what I said, the problem is on a knee-jerk reactions. We have policies which are silo-based. We have policies which are more towards crisis management. We are not looking at what kind of an impact it is going to have. And therefore, how to accelerate is something I have worked out in this book. You did make a mention, and what triggered me to write the book, that steel was in a very, very bad phase when I became Secretary Steel. And what was my first presentation to the PMO was what all I want other departments to do besides what I am going to do myself. So, in the sense, trying to break the silo, and we did a reverse engineering by focusing on the marketing, by focusing on the different players in the sector, by focusing on the financial rules, the general financial rule, we got it amended by adding life cycle cost instead of just the cost. So steel become a winner. And you must have seen that not only the sector revived, it withstood it during COVID. It is still performing very well if you look at these results. And if you look that it was able to stand for the social protection by producing 7,000 million ton of oxygen against the requirement of 10,000 million ton in the peak period when we were fighting the wave 2. So the holistic approach not only enabled them to revive, it enabled them to continue the persistent efforts during the crisis timing and go ahead. And that is what I thought is now we should make it and imbibe it as a system of policy making if we really want to accelerate the pace of $5 trillion economy. We will become a $5 trillion economy. But the challenge is in how many years do we become? So the question is how to accelerate it. So what we need is a paradigm shift from silo to convergent approach. One department cannot deliver, and I will be discussing some of the examples of it as we move ahead. Then, as I said before, knee-jerk crisis management to well thought out approach in policy making, and from ad hocism to consistent and credible policy. You talk to any FDI person, they say you are unpredictable. Why are we getting that tag? And that is what is very important. And most important is we have entrapped ourselves into the schemes. So scheme is just a tool. It is not an end in itself. And we have made scheme as end in itself. So we have a scheme for A, B, C, D, which are just a component of the holistic approach to that particular sector. And that is where we have to prevent ourselves. So therefore, the key lies in the holistic beat. We have to change our mindset, change our attitude when we are making a policy into it. Let me give you example. Angel tax, angel fund, where we have been talking about that the future of Indian economy is self-employment, startups, stand-ups, and therefore a lot of funds were gathered to them as the angel fund. And what did the other wing of the government do? They issued an income tax notice to them on the angel fund that we received, which is not an income. It is just to start off or give a push to the business. So this is what gets lacking when we have a silo approach, which I said. Similarly, we had when e-commerce platforms came, we had these cab aggregators. So many cab aggregators came. But then ultimately, we had that we cannot handle so many cab aggregators, absolutely nothing as to how we go about it, and it was like restarting it. So what is happening is that in the result that we are creating only subsistence level of jobs. We think of a manrega when the migrant laborers went back to villages, right? Is this what we want our population to be, on just a wage employment? It can be a stopgap arrangement, but that is not what we want employment to be. We want employment to graduate it into such a strong position that we shift from subsistence to sustainable jobs. And if possible, to generate surplus jobs and surplus employment. So, absolutely, when we want to go for this, I have divided my book into chapters. And one of the chapter I've focused on the MSME. Because if we want to handle and create 8 million jobs, the big core sector is not going to create, because after COVID, as a fundamental policy, they are going to go for more and more automation. So you are going to have jobs in the MSMEs, in agriculture and mining. So I have devoted 3 chapters for it, and there is absolutely no shortcut for the MSMEs. So when we are talking of MSMEs, we have to look at, again, not a silo approach. So it is not that MSME department. It is what you are doing in the e-commerce policy. Because future for MSME to expand their market, to enter into the export market, lies in the e-commerce sector. And now we have come up different policies for e-commerce under IT Act, under DPIT, under Consumer Affairs Department, under Commerce Department, creating such a scenario where the handholding of the MSME. So if we talk of skill development department, gone are the days where Hindi film syndrome, if a widow is there, वो कपड़े सिल सिल के बच्चे को बढ़ा रही है. No, you have to create quality level jobs. And for that, this hand holding is very important when we are doing for these MSMEs to make them board on the e-commerce platform. Till 40 lakhs, the MSME policy is you don't have to be a GST registration. But even though you're maybe less than 40 lakhs, the moment you decide to explore a new consumer preference of e-commerce, you have to have a GST. So these are the kind of things. So we are not becoming a platform agnostic. We are creating a competition between a brick and mortar shop versus e-commerce. So we will have to modify into this. So I have devoted this entire holistic chapter of MSME. I've used graphics to explain so that people understand the different components and how to go about it. Then I have focused the chapter on agriculture. Now, when we talk of agriculture, it is not just the agriculture expert talking from soil to process the different we talk about. It is also issue of infrastructure. Do we have an access? And there is a very beautiful differentiation which I generally use between having access to gaining access. You know, having access is okay. I have a bank account. You opened a bank account of everybody. But you had forgotten the accessibility, because at that moment of time, you have not used post offices and cooperative bank of having an account in 5 kilometer radius. So do I have an access to a 70 kilometer far off bank? So that is gaining access we are dividing, but having access we have provided. So this differentiation we have to understand when we are talking of the inclusive growth syndrome. So agriculture, if we talk of the infrastructure, it is very important, and therefore I have devoted two chapters. One, a Samruddhi model, the very first chapter in my book, which is talking about the using money. Again, I have tried to break the general impressions that, okay, we want to do so many things, but it is a financial constraint that we are having. My answer is no. And that is the effort in this particular chapter to remove that cataract from the eyes of the people. You will be amazed to know that a panchayat of 1500 population, and in that proportion, you can multiply it, that is 500 households, gets a crore of rupees per annum to develop the infrastructure. Now, why are we accepting substandard infrastructure, the filth, not having proper care? Everything is not working out very well. So, this is a problematic zone that we are suffering from. That enough money is there. What is lacking is a holistic approach and therefore leading to a better management of the resources we are having. So Samriddhi model is working on the four ladders, no economic jargon. You can design for your own panchayat, which are the lack of infrastructure you are having, and how you are going to use this 1 crore of rupees you are getting to get a top class infrastructure, 25 marks for you. And 5 years tenure, whether you are a Sarpanch, MLA, MP, try to achieve that 1 crore. Supplemented by what additionally you get under different other schemes where school buildings or other big projects, hospital construction, everything is coming. That I have not added. I have added only the untied funds which is coming from the Finance Commission, State Finance Commission, converged with Manrega, and how you this 1 crore is available to you to deliver the results. So one ladder is on the infrastructure. The second ladder is on the social protection. Social protection means you have to ensure that every entitlement is reaching there to that particular social protection. And that is where I have elaborated in detail on chapter 2, what you call as a common household database. How many household databases, surveys, individual surveys, eligibility surveys we keep on doing? That has been done away with by the single database which we developed in 2012 in Madhya Pradesh, now replicated in 8 states of the country, where the initial 20 columns carry the household details. The problem with Aadhaar was like if 10 members of your family are there, by Aadhaar card, I cannot know that you are a family. And government entitlement is based on a family. So Samagra, it is a household wise aggregated data where your caste is verified by the authorities, where whether you are BPL or non-BPL, that is your income levels are also being listed there by the authorities. Then your address is confirmed and put there by the authorities. So what changes come? So initial 10 columns are frozen. So and the local self-government, whether urban or rural, is entitled to bring in the modification, which is birth, death, addition by marriage, out by marriage, or split in a family, or complete migration. Besides that, there is no change in the database. And what it helps, you have a scheme in the health, like Dr. Charan Singh is an expert on that, on what you call institutional health. The moment institutional health happens, an amount goes to the account. If it is a construction labor, then the labor department gives compensation to the wages, right? So all these things need to be converged. Now here, just by uploading a birth certificate, all this money immediately gets triggered and joins in the account of the individual. And what is done on Samagra databases, the vertical columns are given to different departments. So there are 5 vertical columns for health and 6 for PDS and somebody for pensions and somebody for scholarships XYZ. So as an administrator at the top level, where I was there and chief minister of any state, you get to know the horizontal, what all you have done to this. And the philosophy of my book is the SDG philosophy. No one is left behind. So this kind of a database, which I have described, not difficult to make. We were able to aggregate this database in just 3 months in a digitized form. And now it is much easier because in the book I have described that from where you can tap this data, update it quickly in 2 months, and how you can go ahead by maintaining it by ensuring and linking to your different databases which has evolved over a period of time. And there was a history behind it because different departments digitized at different levels, and you ended up having too many databases. And this database and this model will enable what we talked on the food security model, that you can draw your ration in any corner of the country, even if one member is migrating to other place. So therefore, the chapter on agriculture is talking about not subsistence agriculture, but creating surplus agriculture. It is also talking about why it is important to locally process at least a step up, if not full processing. I have elaborated the example of Pudina. You grow mint. Now, either you sell it as a mint to the masala wala, or you have decanters in a group of 4-5 panchayats where Pudina is grown as a agriculture crop. You create menthol out of it. So the wealth is shifted. You have added on to the rural employment, which is the crux that you need. And then the buyers, the pharmaceutical and confectionery industry is coming at your doorstep to buy this. So, like that, I've given examples that you have to plan it out in the agriculture as a part of the holistic planning. That what step up you can do, bam, there, instead of bringing it at the end. And the powder one is purchased by the masala industry. So in this step up you can do. I'm not involving them into marketing at a big scale, competing with this big pharmaceutical or confectionery. But a big portion of the wealth is getting shifted from the big company to that of the remotest areas. And that is what the approach to the holistic approach to agriculture is being talked about. Now, in food security, I will just like to show a map. I don't know how clear you are able to visualize it. Right. Now, if you look at the food security, and all of you know the statistics because I separately devoted a chapter on food security. We are in human development indices, especially infant mortality rate, especially malnutrition, is not something to feel proud of if we are targeting a $5 trillion economy. It is not something to feel proud of if we are talking of a developing economy. And there is a scheme for everything. There is a scheme for adolescent girl supplementary diet. There is a scheme for lactating mother. There is a scheme for institutional delivery. There is a scheme for postnatal antenatal care. There is a scheme for along with manpower. So, and there is a scheme which is talking about the child supplementary nutrition. And then you have a midday meal kind of a scheme. Along with that, you have an employment assurance team, the PDS system to ensure that you get food grains, but yet our HDI numbers don't reflect because we are treating them as schemes. There is no human face to it. You don't have a data as a human face. You have aggregated data. You have aggregated numbers. So you have reduced this entire effort to a simple number instead of working into it as a system and going ahead with it. So this is creating a biggest problem while you're working. But if you adopt the holistic approach, which I've shown in the diagram like this, that you do complete life cycle check for the child and intervene where you think we are missing it out or it is figuring out just as a number. So this kind of a monitoring till we do, our numbers are not going to come down. Our performance is not going to improve on these vital human development indices. Because again, what I said in the beginning, our youth population should not become a liability. It should be asset, well nutritioned, well skilled, going ahead with it. So if you look at it, then when I'm talking about the MSME and agriculture, the third most important to trigger the employment is mining. And again, here we had, you'll be amazed to know only 10% of the mines we are exploring today. So, in the sense, you have a possibility of more and more as we are going ahead with it. So, with this kind of a possibility, how are we going to score upon it? How are we going to earn upon it? So mining sector, again, I have talked of the holistic approach where multiple royalties to be merged, how the policy making is going to go ahead. And I'm very happy to know the recent Mining Act has adopted some of it, but still something is left out. So that will go a longer way. I have also devoted a chapter on the banking credit. And the reason why I have devoted this chapter on the banking credit is because now you have multiple types of banks. So you have scheduled banks, you have small banks, you have non-banks, that is the MFIs and the MFIN, that is microfinance, and the NBFCs, which you are having. So, and everybody is going to the priority approach lending. So, there is a fear of duplicating the number. What a microfinance is going, because microfinance borrows from NBFC, NBFC shows in its performance. What NBFC is delivering is showed in the performance of the bank, which has given the money to the NBFC. So, in the sense, again, because of this disjointed or reducing our efforts to just numbers, we will be ending up into a problem. So here we have talked of a tiered approach that we have to have financial slabs that the microfinance institute will lend to a tune of 3 lakhs or 5 lakhs, whatever is decided. NBFC is, so say, 20, 30 lakhs, and then you graduate into the small banks, and then you graduate into the big banks. And that kind of a money flow will develop the skills among the bankers, develop their accessing it in a better way, handling better way, and what today through credit bureau you are trying to achieve, that the NPAs do not happen because too many lenders are giving the money, and that gets controlled. And we have to focus into the specialized approach, which now has come. The government has come up with the potential link plan, the SIDBI, and the NABARD to now focus on the big lending, which we lost out in the IDBI. If you look at the industrial graph in the past, you will find it was we had the specialized people who used to give loan. So in the chapters which I said till now, what we have tried to focus and what I've tried to talk about is that by going for this silo approach, by going by this team oriented approach to policy making is not the answer. We have to have a complete mind change that the scheme is only instrumental in achieving your final objective. I'll give one more very interesting example to you that why objective listing is very important. Very early stage of my life, I realized I was collector in one of the districts. I was collector in 3 districts. So in one of the districts in initial 9 years of my service, so there we got an international recognition for immunization, right? And UNICEF was to compliment us. And we were supposed to get a big reward on that. Very fine, very happy. I came to know we have achieved 150%. Now, basically, the bright ideas come to me when my mind is rested. So at 2 a.m., suddenly I got up with a jolt and was wondering how this 150% achievement has come. So I was waiting for a decent hour in the morning, and first thing I rang up the chief medical officer and I said, how come we are 150%? So he said the central government has given a target, a number, right? And we are have achieved 1.5 times that number, and therefore we have achieved it. I said, wonderful. Can you tell me how many children are born who are eligible for immunization? He said, I don't have ready figures. I told him the first thing in the morning, you bring it. Now, just to give you an example, if the achievement was 150,000, the target given was 100,000. To my horror, I realized the children born were 300,000. So we were not even half mark. Now, an international recognition, a national recognition would have made us complacent to realize that we don't have to pay any attention. Now the immunization is going very well. And that is where the problem came. And that's how the policy making then evolved by monitoring every child and those cards, which came into forward. So I'm giving you this example that the target was not 100,000. Target has to be every child is to be immunized. Then your mind and attitude will start thinking of ways and means that how do I access every child? And that is what makes the whole difference. So I have gone in detail into the chapter on health. You must have seen, let me tell you on the COVID example when the second wave hit us. Now, if you look at the analysis, we have enough manpower. Right bang at the lowest level, we have an ASHA, we have an ANM, we have a DAI, and so three people are there covering a group of 2, 3 villages. So it is there, right? They can be your conduit for a better identification and handholding. Then you have a PHC, then you have a CHC, then you have district hospitals in the public healthcare, and of course the private hospitals which has come power. So manpower, we had enough. As has been proven, emergency oxygen supplementing capability was there. It took time to tell the steel plants that you start making it. When I got a phone call, they said, "You are senior, ma'am, क्या करें?" मैंने कहा कुछ नहीं, स्टील पैम मैप करो. कहते स्टील क्यों? मैंने कहा अरे सबके पास ऑक्सीजन मेकिंग प्लांट है, वो बनाएगा, आपको जितना चाहिए बना के देगा. And they started doing it. Then we have enough nursing homes to tab on. Of course, the number of beds was a problem. But then we know charitable institutions which can come forward and do it. That listing. We have medicine making capabilities, but we were running out of the different medicines. There was no one authority to tell us what is the protocol. All this is a classic example of a non-holistic approach. So when you make a disaster mitigation plan, what is disaster mitigation plan? It is a plug-in. It is not that when concentrated oxygen comes, we start wondering whether you need FCRA, whether GST concession is to be given for 5%, or whether we want to free them from custom duties because the need is immediate. Or how do I shift the oxygen from these supplementing industries to the end point? It took 15 days for doing it. Now, I think learning the lessons, this holistic plan is getting worked out at actually every district level. It has to be plug in. You declare that today is an emergency, everything starts going. It is not that for a single order, you start the file today and reach it to the top. By the time the damage was done. So in the health, I gave a COVID example, but we have enough manpower. We have a conduit system of vaccination. You have done it so well, not the kind of the bad UNICEF example I gave of two decades back, but a better organized one today. You have eradicated smallpox. You have literally eradicated polio. And some sporadic cases, you are still doing it for 3 years. You are going ahead and doing it. So you have this trained manpower. You have this logistic arrangement, which you have to just figure out instead of reinventing it every time. How do you do it? Same thing, you have to do it now. You have sufficient vaccine making capability. You have enough medicine making capability. Now that capability, how much you are able to tap is the challenge. And that will come only when holistically you think, okay, I have to do 50% of population to be taken care of. Immediate. And that's what makes the trigger that enables. So when we have this kind of a thing, which has emerged over last so many years, we have to have the approach to the health has to be no nonsense. Now here I like to give example, like I gave an example, कि पैसा नहीं है, therefore we will have a poor infrastructure is a mindset of compromising. Similarly in health, I don't deny we have to have 5% of the GDP, but easiest excuse what to do, we are having just 2% of the GDP. Therefore, we have to compromise on the bad public health care, bad delivery system. Answer is no. If we start tapping everything, we will have enough money, enough way to approach it and go ahead with it. And that is what is going to make the whole difference when you are working on this approach. I have also done a holistic approach to telecom policy, which the individuals which may be interested in the sector can have a look at it. And the last chapter, I have devoted it for REGIC to the United Nations, which I'll be talking tomorrow in the Policy Circle Delhi Dialogue more. Because now that opportunity has come for India to be chairing the Security Council for 2 years, we should not focus only on the border security issues or terrorism issue. It is an opportunity to talk of the economic issue, to talk of the SDG goal, where no one is to be left behind means the international policy making of no one is left behind. Here I'll give you one example related to health. I was looking after human rights when I was then in Government of India, where HIV medicines were made cheapest in the world by India. But you had the product patenting and process patenting. So it was not the government to government dialogues alone. It was the Human Rights Commission in the State Forum in Geneva of United Nations which took up the issue that it's an issue of human right and it has to be done. So decision emerged from the pressure of the human rights that the medicine and cheapest medicine has to be available if we want to combat HIV. And India was permitted to make that medicine, export that medicine, supply it internationally in spite of product and patent controls, which was patents were coming for the process and products. Now, a similar approach was needed for the COVID medicine, where still the fight is going on the negotiation rate. It's a question of survival of the people. It's a question of human rights. And therefore, this last chapter I have devoted that it is very important because what is going to happen in the future world, the economy of scale and what is produced better and cheaper, the market will keep on fluctuating accordingly. So how much of alertness you are having and how much the developing economy have a voice in the platforms of pressure building in the United Nations is going to be the key for future. So it is not that everybody has signed the SDG goals. So we don't want to end up like MDG goal 2015, like which I always say in my career, I used to tell my juniors कि बॉम्बे डाइंग का सेल नहीं है कि डेट बढ़ाते जाएंगे. There has to be a guillotining where some of the benchmarks we achieve in that guillotining. So, to cut the story short, before I open up for the comments and the questions, is very, very clear that it is high time if we want to use our resources and optimize it to shift to the holistic approach to a sector. The government departments are just for the ease of working, but government is one, the sector is one. And for a sector, it may require 7, 8 departments to have policies which are conducive to each other, which are complementing each other, which synergize each other. So for common objectives, we need synergization between them. Then there is no lack of fund, there is no lack of problem. We have plethora of schemes. You know, I was tired once when I was listing, I crossed 1,000 mark. So you have 1,000 and odd schemes and good. My first book, which I talked of resource convergence, which became a part of the 11th plan then in every scheme, the government department merged to 69. But to my horror, I found again new departments keeps on coming again and again, and so the additional scheme. So it comes like an old wine in the new bottles. So this is what we will have to guard against it. It is very important. It is possible to achieve 5 trillion economy, the clarion call given by Prime Minister by 2024. But we don't have to fritter away our energies. It is very important to have focus. And these are the 10 sectors I flagged because if we start focusing on these sectors and the first go as a holistic beat, definitely we will make the elephant dance and dancing towards a $5 trillion economy. I think I will stop at this point, Dr. Charan Singh, if it's fitting into your schedule. Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharma. This has been a very illuminating talk that you have presented to us. It combines the academic as well as the administrative roles that are necessary for successful implementation of any program. And you are very right. The size of the country that we have, it is so important that the implementation part is equally thought through. And the way you mentioned and the examples that you gave, it was so apparent that it is just not on the drawing board that you drop the plan and then think that this is going to show results. So really thank you for the book, which I'm sure is going to be very useful. I have not read it. I'm going to buy it now and read it because it brings me so much of insight of a practitioner development economist. So I thank you for coming and speaking on our forum. Now I have a very basic question for you. Because of your PhD and the work in the Ministry of Family Welfare and Health and the COVID situation that we are in. So, one question is, according to your own estimates, when do you think we will be able to touch the $5 trillion economy? The Prime Minister wanted us to do it in 24, but the way you've mentioned, and you're aware of the situation in the country, is it going to take us 2 extra years, or we'll do it good in 1 extra year, work extra, or how much time? That's one question. And the other question is, Doctor, with your experience, and you did mention about the vaccination experience that you had, with your experience, by when do you expect that we will be able to overcome this COVID crisis? Because it involves not only vaccination, it also involves production of that vaccine, as well as ensuring that we keep our flock dry and safe in case the third wave comes. So I would like to have your view on these two questions. And in the meantime, I'm requesting everybody to please prepare your questions and put it in the chat box, so that as she answers these two questions, we open it to the general public. So, Doctor, your views?
Thank you so much for mentioning it. Uh, to your thing that you will be reading the book, I will just like to tell you it is published by India Indra Publishing House. And because of the lockdowns and delays in book delivery by Amazons and everything, internationally it is available on Amazon. But for India, they have appointed a marketing person called Monica Bachchan. And I will just read out her mobile number. Maybe I'll repeat it. So, which is collecting all the orders and the dispatches, and it has already touched 600 plus mark in just 1.5 months in spite of lockdown. The number is 9818750128. Again, I'll repeat 9818750128. Coming to your question specifically, definitely we cannot be astrologers in predicting. But 2024 is my challenge that if you focus on these sectors and put your resources for achieving it, we will reach a very big level of a benchmarking towards it. Today, it becomes like a rhetoric that we will be $5 trillion economy by 2024. There has to be benchmarks on 21, where do I reach? 22, where do I reach? 23, where do I reach? And where do I reach on 24? And for that, which are the steps we have taken when we are moving ahead? It cannot be a natural course. Today it is a COVID crisis. Tomorrow it may be floods. Third day it may be earthquakes. So crisis will keep on coming. But then the whole beauty is that how we are going to overcome that crisis in a focused manner and achieve it. We have seen many of the economies are bouncing back. They are bouncing back into the production. And that is only because it is a complete holistic approach you have and move ahead with it. So it is not impossible to be by 2024, at least to achieve 75% of what you are targeting. And if we take an excuse that because 2 years of COVID has gone and postponed to 34, then it will happen what happened to MDG. You said by 2015, this is all we will achieve. We went on, every country said, and by 15, we said, sorry, we are nowhere. So therefore, SDG. So definitely to avoid that, benchmarking is very important. And the second question, what you very correctly said, that when we are talking about, the health and immunization and vaccine availability, vaccine manufacturing is possible. But as we are poor in research, the vials we have to import. So we have to get sufficient vials and produce enough, because the only solution which I have understood and we all have understood internationally is to vaccinate 50-60% of your population. Others is again we shift back to crisis management, because if we are able to protect, there will be a lesser pressure if the wave 3 comes, or wave 4, 5, or whatever it comes. So at least the numbers will reduce and our infrastructure, our things will be able to handle that. That is very important. And if we don't focus on the physical distancing, wearing masks, which I was telling you, that one of the ladder is community responsibility. It is a community's responsibility to ensure physical distancing and mask. It is not something for the government to do. In spite of that, if you are foolish enough to do it, then okay, consequences, more pressure on government. And along with that, the government's responsibility straight away is to ensure vaccination as much as possible at accelerated pace so that in case we are hit by the next wave, our infrastructure is able to handle that pressure. And parallelly, be prepared for the disaster management plug-in kind of a mitigation plan, having learned lessons from the wave two, and then effectively move ahead so that curative care is there. It is a responsibility. There is no excuses, no shortcut for it, and this is the only way we can move ahead with it. So, in the sense, yes, the priorities have to be set right. First thing is to be done first, whether it's your personal life, whether it's your family life, whether it's your state's life, or whether it is a country's life. You can't have an topsy-turvy policies and then say the crisis has hit and has to take care of this. I'll be quite blunt on the COVID because we all have been hit hard and we all know the importance of pre-planning now. Like in private sector, they say, the first mistake maaf hai. Dusra mistake, no. You are shown the pink slip. That's how it is.
I thought the pink slip was finally shown.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that way they have handled it like a private sector.
Very good.
Dr. Sharma, are you familiar reading the questions in the chat box, or you want me
Yes,
to read
yes,
them?
I can. You want
There
me?
is a beautiful question. I was doing some research on MSMEs, and they were telling me that, Professor, can you tell the government that Manrega should operate through MSMEs? And here's
See,
a question also here, almost a similar question. The very first question, I think, from Mohammad Asad Usman,
yeah,
right? Would you have a view on that? You've been in the
yeah,
government.
yeah, very much. I was involved when we made direct benefit transfer. We used Manrega as the example because we found that is the most complex thing to do. And we said if we create a bridge for Manrega to reach the money, then everything from government will go. And today we are in a happy situation that government to person or government to citizen or government to business, there is no cash payment. Everything has become digital now. So your question is that public policies such as Manrega should be with MSME. See, you have to understand one thing. What is Manrega? Manrega is the crisis gap filling employment availability. And it is to be converged, what I said before, with your state finance commission and central finance commission money, which is flowing it at the village panchayat level. So here in Manrega, you have a shelf of projects, and the moment there is a crisis or there is a need for jobs, they multiply doing work. So normal level they maintain for doing work, but in a non-agriculture season or sudden pressure of migrant laborers came, then what they have put in shelf of projects that they will do 3 things or 5 things this year, they exhausted the shelf of project by doing 15 things and add on the new more. So because this is ready money which is available, which the convergence instructions are very, very clear how you converge with your other schemes, you give it. Now, linking with MSME, please understand that Manrega is a wage employment. It's the lowest level, lowest level. What you have to do is that wage employment is restricted to a particular percentage as a stopgap filling or for a minimalistic people. After that, you have to come to MSME, which is a more inorganized, we call it, but then it requires a little bit of organization. And that is where we have to focus. You have to do a reverse engineering. Like I gave you the example of steel. I was horrified to know that the average consumption of steel across the globe is 250 kg per capita. Our consumption was 54 kg per capita. And that was something we started thinking. And China, if we say our denominator is more because 1.3 billion, it is 900 kg per capita. So no excuses. We can't take excuse because we are overpopulated. So we did a reverse engineering that, therefore, GFR amendment, what I mentioned, you create a market. So MSME has to work out by aggregating the production rates, create market by a stronger e-commerce platform and link the two. So MSME department should be responsible, what you have talked about, not wage employment level, but the first one to do the e-commerce, which is a new way of trading. First, the one to start. It cannot be initiated by IT department or commerce department or DP department. It is the MSME which should take a last call. You will not end up into the kind of mess or confusions which are getting created today. So that is what is going to make a difference when you are working on it.
Dr.
Uh,
Sharma,
yeah.
I would like to mention here one thing. And I'll be very specific. I was working with the sports industry in Jalandhar, right? My survey that I was doing while I was at IIM Bangalore. So the sports industry people told me that, look, we have quite a few of our workers coming from Bihar, Jharkhand. Now, because Manrega promises them 150 days of wages, they go around Dussehra and they come back after Holi. Because while we give them the salary here, they say that why should we miss that 150 days of Manrega, which is closer to home and which literally does not involve so much of hectic activity, because there are targets to be given by the villagers, village sarpanch, and therefore the deepening of the canal or widening or the farm side has to be thickened. All those things have to be done, and which is closer to the village. So they were saying that, sir, we are maintaining 150% of our regular staff that is required. Because this guy, when he says he's only going for a month around Dasara, actually only comes back after Holi. So that is one suggestion when I thought was practical, that you are promising 150 days of employment to a lowest rung of the society. But if you link it with the MSMEs, then the MSME promises him at least 360 days of employment, 150 is through Manrega, and 150 is through his own. Means this is what the proposal was, and I thought it was good. And when I read this question, I thought this is probably the experience from Bangladesh also. Okay.
No, let me put it very clearly. Let us not mix the
Mm.
two.
Mm.
Manrega is the wage employment and it is not frittering away money. The instructions of Manrega, if you see it today, it is asset building is besides employment is asset building. And there is a CAG audit. And now you will be amazed to know that infrastructure building is 75 to 76%, which is going. What MSME is talking about is an offsetting of the labor. And if you look at it, it is not just thing, it is also the agriculture season. They go back home from October, and now under Manrega, working in your own farm, also you are entitled to get the labor payment by the Manrega. They go back for their farm activities. So October to March is a migration. Manrega or no Manrega, payment or no payment, they are going to migrate, because what they do is back home they collect enough grains for the family which is going to be left behind when they travel for the works elsewhere. And therefore, in the PDS system, now what is being talked about is this one migrant labor can draw food elsewhere. But yes, the industry which is depending on this migrant laborers coming there, like you said, the sports industry in Jalandhar, they are thinking that this kind of a gap which are having, if it is known that this kind of a gap, a basic minimum they have to maintain, and therefore it is being talked about to have something called an urban Manrega. So urban Manrega will be a format. So instead of helping them with his wages, there could be an offset as a trigger of a subsidy under the MSME scheme. That okay, if you are paying 100 rupees, the government will pay 10 rupees for you or 20 rupees for you, so that you are able to do, because that will be more effective than preventing, because the number of reasons going is festivity, agriculture season, growing grains to store for their family when they are going to be away for the rest of the balance 6 months when they are working somewhere. So this is how it works, right? So we have to get into the genesis of it and then move ahead with it, right?
There's a question by Major General
Yeah.
Sudhakar. He wants to ask, General, do you want to ask your question yourself? And we would request you to be brief and focused. General Sudhakar,
I think his mic is off.
Am I
his mic is, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, please. Now again it's muted. Again it's muted.
Yeah, I think, am I audible now, sir?
Yes, yes,
Yes,
very
you
much.
are.
Good evening, ma'am, and good evening, Dr. Charan Singh, sir. Firstly, compliments to the speaker for an outstanding lecture. Perhaps in my career in the army, it was only in National Defense College where we had the domain experts speaking on the progressive development of socio-economic paradigm. And thereafter, I happened to be in the Army War College, but I'm just making a passing reference of Sagar. I also was Colonel of Maha Regiment located at Sagar. Now, coming straight to the question, ma'am, I have been also speaking on regional security perspective of India in neighboring countries, as also in IITs and IIMs and in our army institutions. I've been carrying out a study. Firstly, compliments for the book that you have written, ma'am. But I have the following comments, if you can kindly very briefly reflect upon them. First and foremost is about the pie diagram of the percentage of GDP of our nation when I compared with China, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan. I found that the industry component between that is agriculture and allied services, industry and the services, the industry component is hovering between 23 to 25%, which is pretty low in comparison to any of the Asian giants. What is being done? We as a nation talking about 5 trillion, dancing towards 5 trillion economy. Second point, ma'am, don't you feel, having done a phenomenal research on the subject, that we as a nation, we are lacking a long-term coherent prospective plan? Maybe 30 years is too less. Could be we could think in terms of the Chinese way of 100 years. It may sound preposterous. This thought came to my mind on 24th July 2021 when I went through the article written by Mr. Ambani, Mr. Swami, Mr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia. I realized that I think we as a nation, we need to think long term and factor in all these aspects of COVID-19, floods, disaster management, crisis management, etc., etc. Third thing that came to my mind in past few days of research is that perhaps the Chinese economy or the South Korea or the Taiwan or the Japanese, they have taken a jump. If we had 266 billion of GDP in 1990, or say 320 billion, China had 360 billion also in 1990. In just about 24 years, it has jumped to 14.7 trillion. Some people say it is 16 trillion, whereas India has jumped only to 2.7 trillion. So is our benchmarking not adequate enough, or do we have to do what you have just suggested, ma'am? Essentially, I found
General,
all the
General,
five Asian
my
giants.
request to you, General,
Yes,
my
last
request to
point.
the too many questions. Can you be just focused?
Can we shift our focus to the industrial component, essentially channelizing our energy to the emerging technologies and semiconductors? Why isn't being
Thank you.
done? Yes.
Right.
Thank you,
Okay.
General. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
What I'm going to suggest to you, Dr. Sharma, because there are
Right.
such good questions and so many,
I'm
and we
seeing
are
that.
already
I'm seeing
we have already finished 1 hour. I don't mind spilling a few more minutes because we get complaints from the participants that you say 1 hour, but you are freewheeling and they don't like it. There are a couple of questions in the chat box, but then the one which I thought you may like to answer is on the garment manufacturing and how come Bangladesh overtook us, right? So this also goes well with what the general said on manufacturing. You may like to take that question. And then there was another one which I thought was also very good. Do we need some concrete demand boosting stimulus measures to take forward the GDP growth in sustained manner in the same direction that you are talking of a $5 trillion economy? Now, the another one was that unemployment is rising. And what do we do for that? And in the march, in the march towards the 5 trillion, how do we accommodate that? And then
Thank you. Yeah, please. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, and then the last question I would say is something on the banking sector, right? So I think you can choose your questions you want to answer, and then after that we'll close the session.
Very true. So what I'll do quickly, I'll respond to Major General. His anguish is very clear. 93, we and China were literally at the same pace, and they went ahead. You must understand one thing. We suffer from a big problem. Like I gave two, three examples to you. We want excuses. The first excuse we say, oh, we are democracy. That's dictatorship. And brush it off. We have not gone into the nitty gritty as to what made them do it. Instead of just rubbishing it off in the name of being not a democracy. If you look at it, they did not leave the marketing part of it in the hands of manufacturing. They went into a trans-village industry kind of a concept where economy of scale they established, research they put it there, bang at the manufacturing place, and a market feedback. But they had 7 guilds which took care of the market, not just domestic but international, and flooded it. So you had a feedback. You say in India is you need Ganesh Pratimas. They made Ganesh Pratimas and flooded your market. Or they say ki, the shoe is not very good for the Western women's feet. You have to change the design, width, everything. They change that immediately. And that is how they captured the whole market. And to the extent, I'll give a small example to you. Like once a delegation of 150 Chinese came, and that 3-4 people came to meet me when we wanted them to make a big investment in the country. The first thing they said, Madam, we are staying in the hotel. We were staying in a 4-star hotel, and they said everything is Chinese. So the entire building material across the globe today is Chinese, and that is MSME. So what went wrong is our benchmarking and rubbishing out instead of systematically working towards it and wasting the energy. And that's why in my book I've said it, it's an opportunity loss we can't afford today. And to this related, I'll take of the garment industry also. We went on distributing Salai machines under n number of schemes. How many we organized into getting designer, cuttings, tie up with the market and everything. And that is where the Bangladesh got an edge on us. They are importing cotton from us. And they are making garments and number one in the export market. So we are not far off. We could have done it. So today when you are talking, what are you doing? Now today the future is e-commerce. Today we have got into the world market in the textile in the terms of towels and bed linens. Like entire Europe market, entire American market, a big chunk now India is supplying. But if we start coming up with the e-commerce policy kind of a thing, no, this restriction, that restriction, you cannot put in the logistics, you cannot help it, then how do we get into the market? So our objective has to be very clear that we want to use this platform to reach the world market or to reach the domestic market, to flood it. Then we should allow all kinds of aggregation. And that is where I was talking on holistic beat. Otherwise, again, in silos, we'll be talking the same language 10 years down the line. So it should not happen. That is very, very important. Then if I just look, I'll run through the question. There is a question on Kisan credit card done very well. Why it did not happen? See, you have to come with a single credit card. You came with a Kisan credit card with 50,000 updated on it. That's all. But it is not becoming as a digital thing. So now with the RBI instruction, your debit card itself will get a top up of till 50,000 rupees and you keep on using it. And that will become much more effective so that they are not bound by the things. And this is used only for the agriculture market with a pin, special pin, which is putting. So technology is going to stand by you when you are working on this. Then there is something banking sector in India for achieving this target, given the challenges like institution and governance constraint and the economic freedom. See, it is very important, and that's why I'm very happy the way now RBI is coming with cogent policies for all creditors. So it has taken this entire vertical line, starting from microfinance to the banks with the latest draft policy which they have come up. The regulations which are coming is a protection. Now, recently we read the 5 lakh protection has come, but our demand is your entire money needs to be protected. So the insurance can cut maybe a rupee per month or something like that, but your entire amount needs to be protected what you put in the bank. which I said in the beginning, we are poorer on social security. Our risk-taking ability is very, very low because our education and health is not taken care of best quality like in all developed economies or emerging economies. The government takes care of it, of the best of the quality that is being given. Here you have to shelve off the money. So you save for your exigencies. And that's how it brings down your expenditure capabilities. So the government has to focus on a top quality decentralized education. It has to focus on a top quality health in the public health domain. And then the demand will go up. Your taxation policy has to trigger more and more spending, and that's how the wheel goes. And you just see, we take proud and being resilient and having maximum small savings. But is that good for the economy? The thought has to come now. But that will come only when we give an assured social protection. Then there is one government I have mentioned already, uh, demand boosting stimulus measures also take forward in the demand boosting measures can be a one time arrangement, like which many countries did during this COVID-19, when the income levels came down, the people were unemployed, but it cannot be a regular measure. Answer is no. अभी like I told you, there is a scheme for everything. तो कोई अगर स्मार्ट बंदा है तो उसको घर भी सरकार दे रही है, नरेगा वेजेस भी दे रही है, राइट, पानी भी दे रही है, बच्चे को स्कॉलरशिप भी दे रही है. So we will produce nalayaks and we will produce parasites. And that is not what it is. You have to reward the performance and help it. So this can be a one-time support, but it cannot be a regular support. Okay, then instead of giving them a fish, you have to make them learn to how to catch the fish. So I think I'm very clear on that point that yes, we have to handhold some sector to come up the lowest of the lot. Nobody should be left behind. The bottom thing, a little bit help. But after that, we have to have a conducive environment so that we trigger and generate employment and reward the performance. Then, pre-submit of United Nations Food Summit 21, what is your view on it? Well, it's a very detailed discussions we will have. See, agriculture, I think it's a big achievement that famine is gone. A generation before me talk about famines. You know, we did not hear about it, but I remember sugar was rationed. So, you know, we used to have that ration card and have a limited quantity of sugar. That's there in my memory, very much. So that also we have come up. So we have come out and we are able to handle this 1.3 billion population. So we have reached there. But then you have malnutrition, you have people dying of food, starvation deaths. So it's a management issue, not what we are capable of producing, and we have done that. So that management issue will come only when we say, no, nobody should be starving. We have to have a mechanism. You can pick up food anytime. And that is what happened during COVID when they were allowed the access. Then you are talking about um, learned during this crisis, you could have never expected. Yes, you learned to be systematic. You learned to have a holistic approach. And I think if we still don't learn, then difficult. Then there is a question, human capital in government and non-government, even after reaching leadership position, continue to be engaged in silos. Yes, because we have trapped our minds. And wherever you see islands of success, it is somebody who broke the silos and brought in a holistic policy. And we have examples within governance, within state governance, within panchayat governance. Our untied fund concept, which came in the Finance Commission, is an outcome of that. That you don't tie up every money that is going. You decide what you want. What is your priority infrastructure? So all that we have to build upon instead of again falling back into the silos, because that is waste of strength, it is waste of energy and waste of resources. We maybe end up duplicating it of all you know, and that will make a difference. UBI to be trade-off for the effective PDS schemes? Well, it depends. Whether you have a PDS or a UBI, what it needs is what I said, gaining access to food when you require in any corner of the country. And PDS, we are running PDS not because of system, because we produce so much of food grains and minimum support price. What are we going to do with that grain? So therefore, in kind, we are distributing. So it is also a cyclic kind of an arrangement what we are having, right? The market cannot handle, you cannot leave it to market. Otherwise, the prices will fall and the farmers will end up into a distress. And therefore, it is the what you talk of PDS system. It is not just to make the food available. It is also to have a conduit of the various procured food that we have got over a period of time. Video in some public platform. Wish to share this with very important discussions with my friend. Well, okay, I can think about it. It will need somebody to properly record it. The immigration policy and trade and tariff policy is going to change throughout the world. As COVID has shaken the whole world, yes. See, you understand that the protectionism has reflected everywhere. But like I said before, we are blessed with 1.3 billion population. Take it as an advantage that if I am making steel, 90% is consumed domestically. 10% you are dependent on export market. Same will apply to your food production. Same will apply to your processed food thing. Same will apply to your health services, consumption of medicines and other things. Same will apply to the vaccines that you produce. Same will apply to your everything, every sector I can think of. 1.35 billion population, high standard of living, we consume. And we give a fantastic break even for any industry. So we are lucky not to be export oriented, export governed economy. And the world cannot work on sanctions. It's a temporary measures. It will open up. So we have been exporting skills. We have been exporting brains, the healthcare, the engineers, the software engineers. We have been exporting them. But like I always say, we exported body shopping, right? Even in the top companies, we're exporting body shopping because we don't know how to frame a question. You know, the Microsoft framed a question or Google framed a question. We gave the best answer. So we don't own the product. So we have to learn to frame the questions, and that's how we become a leader. To what the Major General's question of this having chips, I think we have lost the time. Because today, if I invest in chip making, it will take 3 years to come. By the time you are coming with a new technology, and there is enough capacity, because I remember the Secretary IT, I handled this paper. And I thought, let's focus by reverse engineering, by slowly shifting motherboards, then designing, then other things, you know, instead of just remaining assembly and not just remain on the silicon chip, because we lost the time. We had the capability. I was shocked to see, Hindustan Aeronautics had a small chip making factory for their own use. They said, we never thought of commercially going for it, right? So that is where we missed the bus. But okay, let's see how the technology evolves. Then there is a question on MSP. Well, very controversial subject, but we have to give a protection, right? See, to an industry, we are allowing market forces to decide the price. But then there is a stepping in, we giving some concessions in the input cost. If the input costs are going on increasing in spite of subsidy, and if the farmer is not able to gain a little bit of a profit, then what will happen? Do you know what is happening in West Bengal? Reverse tenancy. Because the land holdings became so tiny, 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 tiny. So by reverse tenancy, they have given the land to some big landlord and some sum of money, and they are driving the rickshaw in Calcutta. Now, is this the quality of life? What I told you? Subsistence to from subsistence. If you want to go to sustainable, I think we are not on a right track. And if we are talking of surplus, we are definitely not on a right track. So that is why the MSME has a point there, unless the market forces we ensure enables them to make that profit. Otherwise, even no industry will work. Then till now, import of raw material from many countries, yes, because we have to invest in research. No shortcut for it. A political system is a key issue that is differentiating GDP difference between China and India. Like I said before, no, that's an excuse. If I don't want to do anything, then I'll say, oh, it's raining too much, something is happening. Somebody's looking east, somebody's. If I want to do it, I'll find an answer to it. Don't you do in your personal life? If you want to achieve something in spite of all hindrances, you SWOT analysis. We all are talking in management and so on. So you build on your strengths and achieve it. So let's forget that and start achieving what we can achieve. And that's the way to go about it. I managed to touch on every question which I could see in the chat box, Dr. Singh. I think
So
I'll stop there.
I must thank you, Dr. Sharma. This was really brilliant. And thanks for introducing us to your book. And I have a very fantastic announcement to make. Our chairman, Dr. Arvind Virmani, is presenting his own research next week, India 2050. So while Dr. Sharma has told us the ground reality today and a peep, say, into 24 or 25 or 26, whenever we achieve the $5 trillion economy, but Dr. Arvind Virmani will be talking to us India 2050. So I request every one of you for joining us next week. Again, same time, 5:30 to 6:30. Dr. Virmani speaking to us. And I want to thank each one of you for today's participation on a Friday evening. I want to thank Dr. Sharma for telling us about her book and being so kind to us, spending extra time with us to, to do this exercise, which we have done. Just a second. So with this, I would also like to mention that the recording of Dr. Sharma's presentation will be available on our website tomorrow by noon. And I'm sure, are going to buy your book. I've already ordered your book while you were answering the questions, and I'm looking forward to reading your book. Seems to be a very good book, Dr. Sharma, and it's a pleasure for us to have you here with us today and listen to your views. I thank all the participants and all the questions that have been raised. The questions only improve the quality of discussion, and things which come in someone's mind help the others to learn much more from the author of the book. And so I want to thank each one of you for the questions that you raised. With this, wishing you a good, happy weekend and looking forward to meeting all of you next Friday. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Sharma.
Thank you. Right.